All right, so today we're actually going to implement it and get our GUI working. And so making these buttons work that we have. So if you look at my GUI, I have add new vehicle, modify vehicle, and remove vehicle buttons. So how do we get those to actually work? So the way these work, when you click on a button, a Java event is fired. Okay. That's what's underlying your code. And so we have something in the code called an event listener. We attach that event listener to our button so that when somebody clicks on the button, that event listener, the code that is inside that event listener method is run. All right. And that means, again, handles a lot of that backend logic for us. So all we need to do is double click our button, and it takes us to our add button action perform method. All right. And that's our event listener method. All right. Action performed. And so NetBeans attaches that to our add button so that when somebody clicks on that button, this code is run. So for example, I can pop something up. So J option pane dot, let's see. Let's not do a J option pane. It is J option pane. All right. Let's see. J option pane. Information message? No. So it's a dialog box, and I wanted to pop up. Here we go. Show message dialog. And I'm just going to say add button clicked. All right. So when I run this GUI, and I need to take something out, I was testing some code earlier. So when I run this GUI, I click add new vehicle, and you see I have a J option pane. That's what this is called. It's just a very simple GUI. And you can put some text in it, add button click. You hit OK. That's just a very simple GUI as an example of what happens when we click that button. Okay. So again, in order to do that, we go to our design, we double click our button. It takes us to our action perform method. So when a user clicks on that button, this is the code that will be run. And as an example, I just put a J option pane in here to pop up add button click. Okay. Everybody following that so far?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Again, double click this button, whichever button you want to do. It takes you to the code that will be run when a user clicks on the button, and you can put whatever you want in here. Now, again, for our GUI, when they click that button, what I want to happen is I want them to click this button, and then this GUI pops up. They click one of these, and actually, let's put a cancel button. Just for user functionality. They click on one of these, and then either the car GUI pops up, and so I finished my car GUI, or the truck GUI pops up, depending on which one they select. Okay. So if that's the case, remember, all of these GUIs are just objects in Java. So if we want to open a new object, we create it. Car type GUI. I'm going to say type GUI equals new car type GUI. All right. Then we're going to say type GUI dot set location relative to null. Again, that puts it in the middle. Type GUI dot set default close operation. So remember, by default, when they hit the X button, it closes out your program. But because this is a secondary GUI, I don't want it to close the program. I want it to just close that GUI. The program still runs. So I'm going to say JFrame dot dispose on close. All right. Then type GUI dot set visible to true. All right. So again, all these GUI classes are just objects, or you can create objects from them. So that's what I did. I create an object. I set the location relative to null. That centers it on the screen. I set the default close operation to dispose on close so that it doesn't close my whole program. It just closes that GUI. And I set the visible to true. All right. So let's see what this does. And you see now we have this GUI that pops up. Cool. If I hit the X, it closes that GUI, but it doesn't close my whole program. Versus our main GUI, we didn't change the default close operation. So if we close this, it X's out the whole program. Okay.
Yeah. I got that. I was having issues with that, trying to make mine, work, having everything just pop up, and when I close it out, I couldn't get it. It would close everything else out, so that helps.
Yeah. Another thing is we want to connect these different objects. Okay, these different frames. So with our method here, we're creating a new frame each and every single time we're creating a new frame. However, we can create one frame and just reuse it. That way, any changes that we make in the future can persist, particularly to our array list. And we can pass our array list on along. So instead of creating our car GUI in the method, I'm going to take this code out. And I'm going to make it a class variable, car type GUI. And then from there, I'm going to type GUI equals new car type GUI. I'm going to initialize it in our constructor. So now it's a class variable. Okay. It's no longer just a single variable inside this method. It's a class variable that can be shared, and all changes are persistent. That's important because when we go to add automobiles to our array list, we need to share our array list. Okay, we need to share it. So if we want the ability to share, we have to go into our car type GUI, into our source, and create a class variable, private array list, automobile, autos. We need a class variable that holds automobiles. And then we can say for our constructor, pass in an array list and set our class autos equal to that argument, to that parameter. Okay. Again, remember, with constructors, we can pass in parameters and we set our class variables equal to those parameters. So when I do that, I get an error in my main GUI. That's because I need to pass in an array list, and we have one, autos. And if you remember, array lists are passed by reference. So any modifications or changes I make in any of these GUIs will be reflected in other GUIs as well. All right, so that's the beauty of pass by reference with array list. If we add a car here, it's going to be updated somewhere else. Now, I do want to list model custom text. Okay. So with the list model, we have to specify what's going to be printed out here. If we just pass in our autos array, our autos array list, I don't think it's going to do what we want it to do. So what I'm going to do is private array list string auto text. All right. And so when we add to this autos array list, we're also going to add the text that we want to be displayed. All right. So let me auto text equals new array list. Instead of autos, we do auto text here. And so this is an array list of strings. And again, those will be the strings that we want to be displayed on our model, on our list model. Okay. And so the autos array list and the autos text array list, they kind of go hand in hand. So we need to pass that in over here as well. They need to be shared across. Now, there might be a more efficient way of doing that. I just don't know it right now off the top of my head. I'd have to do a little bit more research.
And you said this array list is for what now?
The text that we want to be displayed on our list. Right. So before we just passed in our autos array list with all of our automobile objects. However, I don't think that's going to display what we want it to. So if we go back to our main GUI design, this list right here, when we go to our source and we did our model, our list model, we passed in just the auto array. But the list model prints out or displays text, strings. So I don't know what will be displayed by just passing in objects. So instead of doing that, I create an array list of strings that are going to hold the actual text that we want to be displayed. All right, so it's going to say Ford Mustang. That's all that's going to be inside that array list. Or Chevy Camaro. That's all that's going to be displayed in that array list. Just the text that we want to be printed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like when you select like what automobile you want to do and you input it into the text fields, you're saying what appears on the main GUI, what
Correct.
pops up there, right?
Correct.
Okay. All right, I got you. Because I mean, when I did mine, it showed up on the stuff without that.
Yeah, but I changed the two-string method.
Ah.
I changed the two-string method. I added in new lines in here. So I don't want it to print all that information on different lines.
Okay. All right. Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. So, and I mean, we can. It's just, actually, I might do that. I might just keep it on the same line instead of new lines, even when we save. So each line would be a new automobile object. Automobile, car. And if we do this, we keep it all in the same line, then I think we're good. to Brendan's point, I think if we don't have these new line characters, we're good. And we can just keep it with the one array list, which simplifies our program.
Yeah, it automatically put it to the next line for me. Like after I added whether it was an athlete or an automobile, it would just put it to the very next line with whatever parameters I set in the text field.
Yeah. So we don't need this. Yeah, we don't need this. Okay. All right. So there we go. No errors so far. Okay. All right. Now we have our class variable card type GUI. So when we run this, add vehicle, this is a class variable. We close it, click it again. It becomes visible. We close it, click it again. And it's just same object that we're opening it, well, we're making visible and invisible each time, visible and hidden each time. It's one object, one GUI. We're not creating a new object each time. All right. So add, same thing over and over again. All right.
I got a quick question. Well, for my dispose on close, I keep having an error saying it's what does it say? It says it can't find the variable JFrame. Is it because of what it's named?
Did you import javax.swing.jframe?
Yeah, no, I did not.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So if we look at our card type GUI, go to our design, the user has two options, either a car or a truck. Right. So we need to pop up our car GUI or our truck GUI as a result. So I have a car GUI here, and I have a truck GUI here.
You had a little drop down. I like that. That's awesome.
You know, again, you want to limit the user as much as possible.
Yeah.
Even for make and model, if we were really developing a true inventory system, these would be drop downs as well.
Okay.
Right. That way they don't type in Ford with a 0 instead of a O.
Okay, I have a real quick question. Now, we can implement, or are we supposed to implement try catches in this as well to keep them from like, because I had an issue yesterday with the athletes trying to implement where, like, you know, when you go to modify, it would have the 6 feet. If I put in 72 inches, when I go to modify it in the text field, it continues to say 6 feet. If you hit enter, it'll pop up an error. You have to go back in and type in 72.
Yeah.
For it to form. So we can put try catches in the source code as well, right? That's awesome. That's what's up.
Yep. And you could just do a pop-up like I did, J option pane, input not accepted.
Oh, all right. Cool.
Yep. So again, these are buttons. So we could double click these and take us to our action performed. And so inside here, again, we want to pull up. I clicked on the car button, action performed. So we want to open a car GUI, car GUI equals new car GUI. Car GUI dot set location relative to null. Car GUI dot set default close operation JFrame dot dispose on close. Car GUI dot set visible to true. And then for this frame, which is the card type GUI, we don't need this anymore. So I can say this dot set visible to false. Make that disappear. All right. So let's see what this looks like. The changes I just made. Let's see what that looks like. So again, add new vehicle. Then when I click on this car button, this frame is going to become hidden and the new frame is going to pop up. And I can dispose that on close as well. All right. So on and so forth. All right. However, when I'm thinking about the design of my GUI, when I run this, and let's say they want to modify an automobile that's in here. Well, we can reuse this same frame here, right? This same car GUI frame. We can reuse it for modify, except having empty text boxes, they'll be filled in with the information for whichever automobile that we have. All right. So there will be a connection from our main GUI to that car GUI. And again, since we want to share these, I mean, we can keep it as a new GUI each time, and that's fine. Or we can share these across our different GUIs. So it's a design decision, right? My design decision, I'm going to keep it as a new frame each time, all right? A new frame each time and just make it simple. We could share these and do multiple things, but let's just keep it simple and just new frame each and every time. Okay. And the thing to note is this GUI only exists until you close it. At least I think so. See, that's the danger with dispose on close. That frame may still exist, except it's hidden in the background. Some of you might want to explore sharing these GUIs. That might be something we want to do, which is not a problem. I can do this a couple ways. I can pass it as a parameter for our constructors, or I can just create a method that we can set it. Either way, it's fine. I'm going to pass it as a constructor parameter. So a car GUI, and a truck GUI. All right. And we're going to make these also class variables as well. And again, this is so that we can share things across all of these classes. Share the same frames across the different classes, and we only have to create them once. Private truck GUI, truck GUI. And then we can say this dot car GUI equals car GUI. This dot truck GUI equals truck GUI. All right. Let's see. All right. So then we can delete that initialization right there, and then we're good to go. It's a class variable. All right. The car GUI and the truck GUI, we'll have to create these here in our main private car GUI, private truck GUI, truck GUI. We'll need to initialize these first. Car GUI equals new car GUI.
Yeah.
Truck GUI equals new truck GUI. And then we can pass it to our car type GUI. All right. So again, in essence, what I've done is I've created 3 class variables: our car GUI type, our car type GUI, a car GUI, and a truck GUI. I initialized these once, and I reused them in multiple classes. All right. So I'm reusing the same object. I'm passing these objects, passed by reference, to different classes, and we're just reusing them over and over again. The thing to note, the car GUI and the truck GUI both modify our array lists. All right. So we need to pass those in to both of those GUIs. So go to the source, private array list, automobile autos, import auto array list. Take in this as a parameter and set autos equal to new, I'm sorry, autos, this dot autos, our class variable equals that parameter. We do the same thing for our truck GUI as well, right? Both of those GUIs are responsible for modifying our array list. So if that's the case, we need to pass that array list in so that it can be modified.
We don't have to put the list model in there as well.
We do not. The list model only responds to the main GUI. And I believe the list model automatically updates itself. If not, we can update it later on.
Okay. Then I got a bunch of stuff.
All right. So now we have our array list shared between all of our GUIs. Granted, now that we have these GUIs, we don't necessarily need to pass our array list to our type GUI. It's not really doing anything. It's just asking you which type you want to create. So in an effort to make our code cleaner, I'm going to delete that. It doesn't need these. Only these two GUIs need it, which we're passing in. So it's good. It doesn't need our autos array list. All right. All right. So far, what we've implemented is a lot of things in the back end of our program that aren't necessarily visible by the user yet. We have all of our shared GUIs, but we haven't really done a whole lot with them yet. We have implemented the add new vehicle. It pops up this. We click on add car. It pops this up. Great. Cool. All right. So let's start implementing this further. So if you look at my car GUI, I have a couple things in here. Again, I want to reuse this. So when I change this variable name to enter button, because it can either say add or update, depending on what they're trying to do, modify. My title is just sample text because I want that to either say add new vehicle or modify vehicle, depending on which option they chose. All right. So how are we going to do that? So I'm going to go into my source. And I'm going to create a new method. Public set add prompts. Public void. It doesn't return anything. Set add prompts. All right. Inside this method, I want to set that text field, this one right here, to add new vehicle. So if we look at the variable name, JLabel7, I'm going to say title label so that I know what it is. And then here I can say this dot title label dot set text add new auto. Cool. Same thing for this button right here. This is the enter button. So this dot enter button dot set text add. So whenever we want to add a new automobile, we need to call this method to make sure all of our prompts are in order. Another thing to note is that since we're reusing this frame, some of these options, some of these options may have data in them, right? Which we don't want. It might be checked. They might have the make, the model persisting in there, right? Because we're not creating a new one each time. So whatever was in there previously is still going to be in there. So let's make a reset method. Public void reset. And it's just going to reset everything in our frame. So this dot make text field dot set text to an empty string. This dot model text field dot set text empty string. This dot num doors combo box dot set selected index to 0. I need to change this variable name because that's very confusing. This is num cylinders. So go back to my source. This dot num cylinders combo box dot set selected index to 0. These are for drop down boxes. This dot, where's the other one? Spoiler checkbox dot set. Let's see, is it checked? Nope, set selected to false. This dot sunroof checkbox dot set selected to false as well. So basically, I want to reset all of our input fields to their default values, which are empty strings, the first item selected for these ones, and the checkboxes are unselected.
This is just clearing the text fields and stuff like that, right?
Correct.
Oh, I already got that. I'm about to add it again.
And so our set add prompts, when we're adding to our array list, we want to reset everything. We don't want anything persisted in there. So I'm going to call our reset method in this method. All right, that makes sense.
That's clear.
So now in our card type GUI, in our action performed, we can do all of this: set location relative to no, default close operation, visible to true. But let's also say car GUI dot set add prompts, just so everything is in order. Right, everything is reset, and the prompts say add and everything. So we go to our car GUI again. By default, the title text is sample text. Now it should say add new vehicle or add new auto. Add new auto. Our add button still says add. Everything is good. Everything is selected to the first one. These aren't checked from previous times, and we're good. Everybody following so far?
So it was set add prompts.
Yeah, set add prompts. Yep, that's what I called. Set add prompts, and then this was the code for it right here.
Oh, I got something different. Okay, gotcha.
All right. And so now let's create our first functionality, which is adding. All right. Which is actually, so it says add, but the variable name is enter button. So they can either add or they can modify. And that button, the text on the button will reflect that. All right. So I'm going to double click this button, go into the action performed. The first thing I want to check is if enter button, this dot enter button dot get text dot equals add. If the text equals add, they're trying to add. The other alternatives, else if this dot enter button I gotta spell enter correctly. Enter button dot get text dot equals modify. All right, that's the other alternative option. If it equals add, right, we want to grab all of the text we want to check the text, make sure everything, they put something in, they changed the value, they did something. And then we add the automobile to our array list. Again, we're doing our user checking, just like before. They couldn't enter a number for or a character for a number of doors or something of that nature. So we have to do those same type of checks. But let's get all the text first. String make equals this dot make text field dot get text. String model equals this dot model text field dot get text. Int num doors equals this dot num doors dot get selected. Let's see. Get selected item. And I believe we can integer dot parse int whatever that selected item is. It's not going to like that. So along with that integer dot parse int, we're going to convert. So this is a long kind of bit of code for a combo box. I'm converting the selected item into a string. Then I'm taking that string and converting it to an integer. It was a little bit of code wizardry. Boolean sunroof equals this dot get sunroof. This dot sunroof checkbox dot is selected. As for a text checkbox, Boolean spoiler equals this dot spoiler checkbox dot is selected. Boom. So we've gotten all of our text fields. Okay. So now let's check them. Check to make sure that they have values in them. Specifically, the make and the model. String error MSG equals empty string. If this dot make, not this, if make dot equals an empty string, error message plus equal make is required. And then I'm going to do a new line character. Else if model dot equals an empty string, error message plus equal model is required. All right. If error MSG dot equals an empty string, meaning we didn't add anything to our, and these should be two separate if statements. We didn't add anything to error message, so everything is good to go. There were no errors. We'll create our car object, car equals new car. Say car dot set make to make, car dot set model, car dot set sunroof or spoiler, I guess, car dot set sunroof. And then there was one other thing that I didn't grab, int num cylinders equals integer parse int string this dot num cylinders combo box dot get selected item. So my car object, car dot set num cylinders to num cylinders. Then our last thing, autos dot add car. So what we've done is previously the user would type all of this information from the console. Then we would check to see if they had made any mistakes. But since my GUI, I have limited the user's ability to make mistakes. The only mistakes they can make are if they don't add any text into make and model fields. And even I was talking to Brendan before, if we were creating a real inventory system, I would make these drop-down boxes, which even makes it even more difficult for them to make a mistake. All right. But as of right now, that's the only mistake they can make. Now, this code applies for when we add and when we modify. So again, we don't want to repeat ourselves. So we can take this code and put this up here. Put this at the beginning of our method. We need to check the fields regardless if we add or we modify. Right? Regardless, it doesn't matter. And if there's an error message, we don't ever want to go into the add or modify methods. So I'm going to put that error message out here and put both of these if statements inside of it. So if there's an error message, we're not even going to do these if statements. If there's an error message, we're going to tell the user about their error and then move on. So format. All right. Not quite sure where this goes. Oh, it goes with the if statement. So if there's not an error message, do this stuff. If there is an error message, else, like I told you before, you can do a J option pane dot. Let's see, J option pane dot. I think it's a message or information. Show message dialog. I'm trying, there's a couple different types. So I think I want one with the message type. Yeah. So I'm going to do this one right here. So as the parent component, it has whatever the message is, the title of this frame, and the message type. So the parent, I'm going to say this. The message is the error message. The title, I'm going to say error, error with input. And the message type is going to be J option pane dot error message. All right. So again, let's run through this code again. So the first thing is I grab all of the text from those user dialog boxes, whether it be a text field, a combo box, which is just a drop-down box, a check box, so on and so forth. And then I want to check if there are any errors. So I create a string just to hold whatever the error message is. I check if make equals an empty string. I'm going to say make is required. If model equals an empty string, model is required. And these two checks are independent of one another. That's why they're in their own separate if statements. They're not else ifs. It's not one or the other. I want Java to check all of them. And then if there's not an error message, if the enter button text says add, we need to create a new car, and then add that car to our autos array list. If there is an error message, I want a J option pane, show message dialog, whatever that error message is, with the title error with input, and the type of error type of message is a error message. So when I run this, I click on add new vehicle, car, add. It's going to show us. So this is the purpose of that message type. It shows this little icon over here. That's why I did the J option pane error message. It shows this little icon. And it's going to say make is required, model is required. Boom. So when I put a make Ford Mustang, I'm going to say it's 2 doors. There's a sunroof, a spoiler, and of course it got 8 cylinders. Add. And so what happens is it actually added to our array list, but you don't see the update yet, right? You don't see it updating in our list, which is what we'll cover next time. All right.
Okay.
We'll cover that next time.
All right, cool.